People keep bugging me. All right. Today we are reading July 8th, starting with Mark 14:32-72. Yeah, Mark 14:32-72. And they came to an olive grove called Gethsemane. And Jesus said, "Sit here while I go and pray." He took Peter, James, and John with him, and he began to be filled with horror and deep distress. He told them, "My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and watch with me." He went on a little farther and fell face down on the ground. He prayed that, if it were possible, that the awful hour awaiting him might pass him by. "Abba, Father," he said, "everything is possible for you. Please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will, not mine." Then he returned and found the disciples asleep. "Simon," he said to Peter, "are you asleep? Couldn't you have stayed awake and watched with me even 1 hour? Keep alert and pray. Otherwise, temptation will overpower you. For though the spirit is willing enough, the body is weak." Then Jesus left them again and prayed, repeating his pleading. Again, he returned to them and he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open, and they didn't know what to say. When he returned to them the third time, he said, "Still sleeping, still resting, enough. The time has come. I, the Son of Man, am betrayed into the hands of sinners. Up, let's be going. See, my betrayer is here." And immediately, as he said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a mob that was armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent out by the leading priests, the teachers of religious law, and the other leaders. Judas had given them a prearranged signal. "You will know which one to arrest when I go over and give him a kiss of greeting. Then you can take him away under guard." As soon as they arrived, Judas walked up to Jesus. "Teacher," he exclaimed, and gave him the kiss. Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. But someone pulled out a sword and slashed off the ear of the high priest's servant. Jesus asked them, "Am I some dangerous criminal that you come armed with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there teaching every day." But these things are happening to fulfill what the scripture say about me. Meanwhile, all his disciples deserted him and ran away. There was a young man following along behind, clothed only in a linen nightshirt. When the mob tried to grab him, they tore off his clothes, but he escaped and ran away naked. Jesus was led to the high priest's home, where the leading priests and other leaders and teachers of religious law had gathered. Meanwhile, Peter followed far behind and then slipped inside the gates of the high priest's courtyard. For a while, he sat with the guards, warming himself by the fire. Inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find witnesses who would testify against Jesus so they could put him to death. But their efforts were in vain. Many false witnesses spoke against him, but they contradicted each other. Finally, some men stood up to testify against him with this lie. We heard him say, "I will destroy this temple made with human hands, and in 3 days I will build another, made without human hands. But even then, they did not get their story straight. Then the high priest stood up before the others and asked Jesus, "Well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself?" Jesus made no reply. Then the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the blessed God?" The Son of the blessed God. Jesus said, "I am, and you will see me, the Son of Man, sitting at the right hand in the place of power and coming back on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes thing to show his horror and said, "Why do we need other witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" And they condemned him to death. Then some of them began to spit at him, and then they blindfolded him and hit him in his face with their fists. "Who hit you at that time, you prophet?" They jeered. And even the guards were hitting them as they led him away. Meanwhile, Peter was below in the courtyard. One of the servant girls who worked for the high priest noticed Peter warming himself at the fire. She looked at him closely and said, "Then, you were one of those with Jesus, the Nazarene." Peter denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, and he went out into the entryway. Just then, a rooster crowed. The servant girl saw him standing there, and he began telling the others, "That man is definitely one of them." Peter denied it again. A little later, some other bystanders began saying to Peter, "You must be one of them because you are from Galilee." Peter said, "I swear by God, I don't know this man you're talking about." And immediately the rooster crowed for the second time. Suddenly, words flashed through Peter's mind. "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and cried. Oof, that was deep. Now we're going to read First Kings 9. So Solomon finished building the temple of the Lord, as well as the royal palace. He completed everything he had planned to do. Then the Lord appealed to Solomon a second time, as he had done before at Gibeon. The Lord said to him, "I have heard your prayer and your request. I have set apart this temple you have built so that my name will be honored there forever. I will always watch over it and care for it. As for you, if you follow me with integrity and godliness, as David, your father, did, always obey my commands and keeping my laws and regulations, then I will establish the throne of your dynasty over Israel forever. For I made this promise to your father David, you will never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. But if you or your descendants abandon me and disobey my commands and laws, and if you go to worship other gods, then I will uproot the people of Israel from this land that I've given them. I will reject this temple that I have set apart to honor my name. I will make Israel the object of mockery and ridicule among the nations. And through this temple, as expressive now, it will become an appalling sight for all who pass by. They will scoff and ask, why did the Lord do such a terrible things to his land and his temple? And the answer would be, because his people forgot the Lord, their God, who brought their ancestors out of Egypt, and they worshiped other gods instead. That is why the Lord brought all of these disasters upon them. Solomon's now at the end of the 20 years during which Solomon built the temple of the Lord in the royal palace. Solomon gave 20 towns in the land of Galilee to King Hiram of Tyre as payment for all the cedar and cypress lumber and all the gold he had furnished for the construction of the buildings. Hiram came from Tyre to see the town Solomon had given him, but he was not at all pleased with them. "What kind of towns are these, my brother?" he asked. "These towns are worthless." So Hiram called that area Kabul, worthless. It is still known today. Hiram had sent Solomon 9,000 pounds of gold. This is the account of the forced labor that Solomon conscripted to build the Lord's temple, the royal palace, the Milo, the wall of Jerusalem, and the cities of Hazar, Megiddo, and Gezer. The king of Egypt had attacked and captured Gezer, killing the Canaanite population and burning it down. He gave the city to his daughter as a wedding gift when she married Solomon. So Solomon rebuilt the city of Gezer. He also built up the towns of Lower Beth-Horner, Belath, and Tamar in the desert with his land. He built towns as supply centers and constructed cities where his chariots and horses could be kept. He built to his heart's content in Jerusalem and Lebanon and throughout the entire realm. There were still some people living in the land who were not Israelites, including the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites. They were descendants of the nations of Israel that had not completely destroyed. So Solomon constricted them for his labor force, and they served in the labor force to this day. But Solomon did not conscript any of the Israelites for forced labor. Instead, he assigned them to serve as fighting men, government officials, officers in his army, commanders of his chariots, and charioteers. He also appointed 550 of them to supervise the various projects. After Solomon moved his wife, Pharaoh's daughter, from the city of David to the new place he had built for her, he constructed Milo. 3 times each year, Solomon offered burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord on the altar he had built. He also burnt incense to the Lord, and so he finished the work of building the temple. Later, Solomon built a fleet of ships at Ezion Geber, a port near Elath, in the land of Edom, along the shores of the Red Sea. Hiram sent experienced crews of sailors to sail ships with Solomon's men. They sailed to the Ophir and brought back Solomon 16 tons of gold. Woo! 16 tons of gold. Hosea 11, 1 to 11. Hosea 11, 1 to 11. When Israel was a child, I loved him as a son, and I called my son out of Egypt. But the more I called to him, the more he rebelled, offering sacrifice to the images of Baal and burning incense to idols. It was I who taught Israel how to walk, leading him along by the hand. But he doesn't know or even care that it was I who took care of him. I led Israel along with my ropes of kindness and love. I lifted the yoke from his neck, and I myself stooped to feed him. But since my people refused to return to me, they would go back to Egypt and would be forced to serve Assyria. War would swirl through their cities. Their enemies will crash through their gates and destroy them, trapping them in their own evil plans. For my people are determined to desert me. They call me the Most High, but they don't truly honor me. Oh, how can I give you up, Israel? How can I let you go? How can I destroy you like Admah and Zebulun? My heart is torn with me, and my compassion overflows. No, I will not punish you as my burning anger tells me to. I will not completely destroy Israel, for I am God and not a mere mortal. I am the Holy One living among you and will not come to destroy. For someday the people will follow the Lord. I will roar like a lion, and my people will return trembling from the west. Like a flock of birds, they will come from Egypt flying like doves. Then they will return from Assyria, and I will bring them home again, says the Lord. That was good. That was good. That was good. That was our daily word from the Holy Bible. Thank you and have a great day.